Welcome to the Blast Zone, the podcast where we dig up the bombs that shook Hollywood and try to find out why they went up in flames. This week, how do you do, fellow kids? This is Dear Evan Hansen. Welcome to the Blast Zone.
Welcome to the Blast Zone.
We are not a podcast about bad movies. We are a podcast about movies that did badly.
That's right.
I am Jon Drake, in-house film critic of my Letterboxd account.
And I'm Ian Dukes. I'm a person with thoughts and feelings, and some of them are about movies.
Movies like Dear Evan Hansen, which we'll be talking about today. But before we get into that big announcement, we've got a Letterboxd list we just made of all the past episodes and even a couple future episodes.
Ah, that's very cool.
We'll put a link to it in the show notes and we'll tweet out a link as well. You guys can follow along and also check out the upcoming movies.
Yeah.
As far out as we have planned them, we don't always know exactly what we're going to do. But
we'd love to have people watch along with us. We know that some of our listeners listen anyway, whether they've seen the movie or not. That's a great honor that you would choose to listen to our version of the movie without even seeing it. But yeah, it's more fun if everyone, including listeners, have seen the movies. And we got the idea from listeners. Isn't that right?
It is right. Yeah, we got an email this week from Justin. He was very positive on the show overall, but just said he would like to watch the movies ahead of time.
Thanks for the email, Justin. And great idea. We love to have you keeping up with us, get a chance to watch the movies, and then listen to us ramble about them.
Now I just got to remember to update that Letterboxd.
I know. We'll do our best.
We'll stick with it. Anywho, Ian, how are you doing this week?
Well, I don't know if you heard the news, but God came out this week and he said he regretted creating Los Angeles, that we are corrupt. And so he tried to drown us all in a little flood. It's a trick he's pulled before.
He's always doing that.
I remember back to Star Wars, where C-3PO gave R2 a little strategy. He said, let the wicked win.
He said, Wookiee, let the Wookiee win.
And so I refused to be washed away, and I'm still here doing my wicked shit.
Good for you, buddy. That's great to hear. You also had a little earthquake?
Oh, yeah. He got us this afternoon. God's funny like that. He's like, I know you're still there, you little fucker.
You're going to hear a buzzing outside your door. Is that locusts? What's happening here?
How's your week? Any plagues or anything come your way?
No plagues. Relatively quiet week, which is good. It's starting to warm up here as you guys get cooler over there. We had a couple days hit the 50s this week, which was nice. All the snow is pretty much gone. That's enough for me to count it as a good week. It wasn't 25 degrees every day.
Yeah, a little de-icing is good for the soul.
Ian, I understand you are keeping with your current theme of bringing like a new prestige TV show every week.
You know I love little mini themes, and I got a streak going just by accident, so I'm going to keep it going. I'm calling it Honorific TV Shows. 2 weeks ago, I brought Monsieur Spade. Last week, I brought Mrs. Davis. And now I'm doubling up. I'm bringing Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You may have heard of this new series on Amazon Prime.
Me and Mrs. Jones. Oh, sorry.
I love that song. This is not a straight up remake of the movie that you might remember with Brad and Angelina, but it's actually a wonderful reinvention of that movie. From what I understand, Donald Glover invited one of his Atlanta season 3 writers, Francesca Sloan, to co-create the show with him. And then he roped in a bunch of his familiar collaborators, people you might know like Hiro Murai and his brother, Stephen Glover. The whole gang is there. We know they know how to make a good show. Co-starring across from Donald is Maya Erskine, who I recently gushed over when she was the star of Blue Eye Samurai, and she's really good in this. They have really cool chemistry on screen. And what's interesting, if you're thinking about whether it's something you want to watch, is it's not a spy show with a romance subplot. It's a genuine relationship show that happens to have a unique spy setting to it. So I'm really enjoying it for that.
All right. I know there was some backstage drama with the making of the show because originally it was Glover and Phoebe Waller-Bridge were co-creating it. And then I guess they had some differences in opinion of how the show should be formed. And Glover got to keep the baby.
Is that why she moved on?
Glover just did an interview that was a little more forthcoming than you typically expect from Hollywood types about this thing. And he basically called it a divorce. And then they had to choose who got to keep the baby. He got to keep the show and make it in his image.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I thought I remembered Phoebe Waller-Bridge being identified with it. And you're right. In most of the mainstream press that they're doing about it, she's not mentioned because obviously why would you drag up old stuff like that? Francesca Sloan talks about it and she was just really thrilled to get to co-create with Donald Glover. And they made a good show.
I'm excited to check it out. It checks a lot of boxes for me. And they're not married in the show, right? That's the big difference from the movie to the show.
No, it's kind of what you expect at first, but the relationship, I don't want to give too much away.
Yeah, you know what? No, don't do it. I'm sure most of our listeners will want to check it out and haven't got a chance to yet. So let's let them come out to it on our own time.
For sure.
So this week I watched something pretty exciting and Oh, who's that? Someone's at the door.
What's going on?
Oi, it's me, the beekeeper, mate.
Oh my gosh.
Born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. I heard you got some bees I need to keep.
Jason Statham has just broken into John's home, which I understand is close to Springfield, Massachusetts.
That's right. I can't keep doing this. But yeah, I watched The Beekeeper, which was filmed in the UK, but they're like Springfield, Massachusetts. And I'm like, I live like 20 minutes from Springfield, Massachusetts. My wife was born in Springfield, Massachusetts. I have friends that live in Springfield, Massachusetts. Like, not one fucking frame of that movie resembles anything remotely like Like, it's just a random city to pick.
Come on.
To be like, this is where we're from.
Old England, New England. What's the difference, really?
I guess. Western Mass is a different beast. There's no like cobblestone streets and shit like you see in Boston.
Oh, okay.
Like, this is New England. This is industrial Rust Belt type shit. But yeah, I watched The Beekeeper. I had about 5 beers and a fat joint first.
Okay.
And I think that helped a lot.
Sounds about right.
Because it's stupid as fuck, but infinitely entertaining. And I know you gave it about 20 minutes and you bailed out right before it gets kind of funny.
Yeah. I watched the really boring setup part and I was like, I can't hang, but I should have hung.
I had the distinct feeling watching it that David Ayer knew he was making like a joke movie and Jason Statham did not. Because Jason Statham gave some interviews. He's like, oh, they pulled the rug out from under me. I thought I was going to be making a serious drama.
Really?
But he talks about bees so much that every time he mentions like, oh, we got to protect the hive. It's just because he was Australian there for some reason. It becomes like increasingly funny every single bee reference that he makes. And he actually, spoiler alert, if you really want to watch The Beekeeper, don't want anything spoiled, fast forward about 30 seconds, but he gets a John Wick moment. These guys drive up and kill his bees with a shotgun.
Of course they do. Yeah. No, I mean, I should have known.
They shoot his bees with a shotgun. They might have killed like 5 bees that way. I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's not a very efficient way to kill bees.
You got to be really accurate. I watched enough that I saw Jason Statham wearing a beekeeper outfit, and I'm like, it just looks nothing like a beekeeper. I mean, it was an actual beekeeper outfit, but I'm like, it just doesn't connect. It doesn't make sense. But it's not supposed to. Maybe only Statham thought it was supposed to.
I respect the hell out of actual beekeepers. It's a very important job. I don't think it pays very well, but no fucking way would you ever get me in one of those suits.
Yeah.
You just walk around covered in bees all day? Fuck that. One of them's going to slip through somewhere and get you in the neck or something.
Saving the bees. You ever see that lady on TikTok?
Yeah.
She does it without any suit whatsoever. It's kind of impressive.
There was like some controversy that maybe it was staged when she was doing it. I was like, how do you stage that though? Like they're real bees, obviously. She doesn't have a CGI budget.
She told the bees in advance and they knew not to sting her on camera.
Yeah, beekeeping's important. And that's why I would like other people to do it besides myself and or Jason Statham, because he doesn't seem very good at it either. In the movie he does, but I don't think he's doing it in his free time.
Probably not.
Speaking of things we are not doing in our free time, that would be watching Dear Evan Hansen unless I had this podcast.
That's true. Probably would have never happened.
I would have never even thought of this movie again. But we got to give the people what they want? Question mark?
Maybe.
No one asked for this. It was a big bomb. It was a big story. It might feel like a bigger story to us because we were very active on Twitter at the time, and it was a heavily memed movie, to be sure.
I realized that when we decided to do it, and I went back and checked Know Your Meme and such. But honestly, I had to refresh myself because I remembered that this movie existed, but apparently even then I didn't care enough to let those particular memes stick in my brain. So I guess people talked about it. I couldn't remember what they were talking about. And then when I dug it up, I'm like, oh yeah, I get it. That's what I'm going to be talking about today.
Yeah, let's get right to it. The big issue people had with this movie was Ben Platt playing a 17 or 18-year-old.
Yeah.
He was only 27, which isn't an outrageous age to be to play a teenager. We've seen a lot worse. I was talking to my wife, Jamie, about it last night, and she brought up Grease, which that's like the example of the worst of all time.
But also a different era. I don't know. Expectations were different then.
Also, his peers in the movie, not that they're so much younger than him, but they just look a lot younger than him in this movie. Like Kaitlyn Dever is always going to look like 19, I think. Doesn't age.
She's 1,000% convincing as a high school kid. And even as a high school kid who's like a grade or two younger than Evan, which I think she is.
Yeah, because her brother Connor was a senior.
So like, no problem. You never for an instant doubt that about her, even though she's nearly as old as Ben Platt. We're going to have to do a deep dive on all the aspects of this, but you can't buy what he's selling. And unfortunately, he's the star. The whole movie hinges on your empathy with him as the hero, and it just falls apart every time he comes on screen for me.
This isn't about attacking Ben Platt's appearance. It's more about the type of tricks they tried to use to make him seem younger and actually backfired. Like, I feel like the costume department, the director, the lighting department, the makeup department all kind of failed him in this movie. They dress him in these like very stereotypically childlike clothes. Like, I was surprised he wasn't wearing a fucking propeller hat.
It's kind of Peanut style. That's what's weird is it's actually they dress him like a child of the 80s when the movie is set in contemporary times. He's wearing New Balance and corduroys and like OP shirts.
I know his family's supposed to be like not super well off, so maybe it's hand-me-downs or thrift store shit.
That could explain it a little bit. tip.
But he grew out his hair into this long, like, perm.
Nobody making this movie is as old as me. Like, they're not thinking, oh, my idea of a child is somebody from 1985, and let me just put that on screen. But somehow that's what he's made up as.
Between his clothes, his hair, his posture, it looks like a 27-year-old playing an 18-year-old who acts like a 10-year-old.
That pretty much sums it up. My first note to myself was like, this is the most 40-year-old high school student I've ever seen in my life.
I try not to harp on that stuff too much because it happens and you don't necessarily want to rely on child actors. I know that they have much more strict rules about how long they can be on set and things like that. So it can be a headache for directors. And we'll get into it. This was a vanity project for Platt a little bit.
Just to step back and say, oh, there's no other way around it. We've seen other actors in Hollywood play young. I'm thinking of Timothée Chalamet, Tom Holland, guys who can also sing and dance and play teenagers well into their 20s, or I don't even know how old those guys are now. But
Holland might be 30.
He might be. But like, that's the kind of guy that you cast ideally who can pull it off. And, you know, everyone's willing to put in a little suspension of disbelief for a Hollywood movie and go, yeah, I know this actor's a little older, but he's charming and he's winning and he's a charismatic kid or not. As in this case, they will have to debate whether the character's actually supposed to have some charm. But yeah, they were stuck with Platt. And I get why. He's the only person ever associated with this role. Ever since the play was written and the first time it was put on its feet for workshops, it was him. He's the only guy until he gave it up for a few years. And then his fiance took over. I don't know. But
he essentially created this character, not the lines or anything or the lyrics, but how the character walks and talks, his mannerisms. That was Ben Platt. He brought this character to life and by all accounts did a great job on stage. It's just, I think he's very much a stage actor and sometimes those choices don't translate to screen as well either.
Yeah. So you can't say, oh, he got it wrong. He misunderstood because he defined the character. So you got to give him that leeway. But his performance doesn't work great on screen. And the age thing, because he was 21 when the play was first written and tried out off Broadway, and then was 23 when it hit Broadway. But there's distance on the stage between the actor and the audience, and that covers a lot of sins of the face and the various wrinkles and stuff, which cannot be hidden on the screen. They can be hidden on the screen, but they weren't in this for whatever reason.
The weird thing is I've seen him since this movie, and he looks younger now than he did in this movie. When he has a more traditional haircut, just, I don't know what you would call it. It's shorter on the sides, longer on top, like not this kind of perm that he's got going.
The haircut was maybe the worst choice that doomed the character. He said he grew out his hair to look younger, which I get it. There's a moppy head or teenager kind of thing. But then his hair is like sculpted. So his curls in front always look hairsprayed or gelled. And then they highlight the gaps between the sort of wet curls on his forehead and his hairline. So it looks like an old guy in a bad wig.
Let's talk about who he really looks like, Ian.
Yes.
He looks like Bilbo Baggins.
He looks like Bilbo Baggins.
He looks like a hobbit with his hair and no sign of facial hair anywhere.
All the hobbits in The Lord of the Rings had that thing where they looked a little wiggy. They looked a little like they were trying to play younger and smaller than they were. And he definitely has that.
But hobbits age weird too. Like Bilbo was like 115 and he looked okay.
That's true. Yeah, they have excuses.
Although the ring helped. But like the hobbits just lived longer anyway.
Yeah.
Frodo's like 50 when the book starts, which is crazy.
That's right. He's an adolescent in the Shire. But yeah, sadly, when you say hobbits, the other person I thought of when I saw Ben Platt's face staring out at me was Gollum, which is sounds derogatory, but
yeah, that feels mean-spirited.
He's very damp. He's a very damp actor in this.
He's moist.
He looks soggy.
Yeah.
He's like a quivering lump. Sorry, Ben. I think he has talents.
I've enjoyed Ben Platt and other things. He's a great singer. His voice still resonates very strongly in the songs he sings in this movie, but maybe not to its benefit too. We'll get into that. Do you want to hear more about how the movie got made though?
Yeah, let's hear how this thing happened.
All right. This farce. Sorry. The musical Dear Evan Hansen premiered on Broadway in December 2016 and was an immediate critical and commercial hit. Following an outcast who uses a classmate's suicide to boost his social standing, the play was not without controversy, as it would deal with themes of isolation, depression, social anxiety, and suicide. One thing most everybody could agree on was that star Ben Platt in the title role was worthy of praise.
As in one praise, he doesn't get cast in the movie.
In November 2018, Universal Pictures bought the film rights and hired Steven Chbosky, a writer and director of similarly angst-ridden coming-of-age dramas like The Perks of Being a Wallflower and Wonder to direct. They also hired the play's writer, Stephen Levittson, to adapt the story into a screenplay. Platt was confirmed as the star in June 2020, and around that same time, it was confirmed that Kaitlyn Dever was in negotiations to play love interest Zoe Murphy. Chbosky was effusive in his praise for Platt, saying the main reason for the movie's existence was to capture and immortalize his performance.
Yeah, capture it and hold it still so I can hit it.
Chbosky was working with a relatively modest budget of $28 million, and so the cast was rounded out with some lesser-known names like Amandla Stenberg, Nick Dodani, Colton Ryan, and Danny Dino, but would bring the star power when casting Evan's mother and Zoe's mother, with Julianne Moore and Amy Adams signing on to play the respective roles. Filming began in August 2020, with some scenes being shot in Los Angeles, but the majority being shot in and around the Atlanta area. Filming wrapped in December of 2020, and the first trailer dropped on May 18th, 2021. Everybody loved it, whether they were fans of the musical or not. Just kidding, it was met with almost universal scorn. The main criticism was lobbed at Platt's appearance, as he was 27 at the time of filming and looked far too old to play the teenage title character. Tweets were tweeted, memes were memed, and the film was getting all the wrong kinds of attention. It was basically Cats Part 2.
Minus the CGI buttholes.
There were also claims of nepotism, as Ben Platt's father Mark was a producer on the film. Universal and Levinson both put out statements in support of the film and Platt, and the movie was gearing up for September 24th, 2021 release. That release would also not go well. Critics were savaging the movie, as it currently sits at 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. David Sims of The Atlantic said, and I quote, "Almost everything imaginable has gone wrong," and that was one of the nicer reviews.
Here's one that just says, "Dear shit sandwich."
The film opened in second place behind fourth-week holdover Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, pulling in $7.4 million, well short of the initial $11 million projections. It dropped a massive, though not quite Marvel's level, 67% in its second week, pulling in just $2.4 million from over 3,300 screens. By week 3, it was being pulled from theaters by the thousands. The movie would pull in just $19.1 million worldwide, becoming a critical and commercial failure. It may yet take on life as a so bad it's good classic, but considering it's almost 2.5 fucking hours long, time will tell.
Well, time certainly does tell when you're watching this thing. And supposedly they cut 7 songs from the play.
How long is the fucking musical if they cut 7 songs?
I bet there's not as many sort of extended dialogue scenes in the musical. And they added one song. They added Alana's song in the middle. It's new for the movie.
Yeah, she's a good singer, good actor. I had no problem with that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You mentioned all these other people in the movie. Lest anyone think we are haters, we love just about everybody else in this film except for poor old Ben.
I also didn't love Connor's dad.
Okay, he has a tough role.
Kind of a weak actor. Also, Amy Adams is a tough role, but she's Amy Adams, but like...
No, you're right.
She's obnoxious. It's like, she's sad, and that's all there is to her character.
She's terrible. It seems like they wrote her that way to give the audience an out on Evan, because Evan behaves terribly through most of this movie, concocting and perpetuating these horrible lies that are incredibly dangerous and hurtful. But you kind of go, oh, she goaded him into it. The mom was so heartbroken and sick after losing their son that he did it to try to make her feel better. But it results in Amy Adams having to act this character who's just pretty fucked up.
Yeah, she was having a rough stretch. She had done Hillbilly Elegy.
Yeah, I never saw that.
Got some praise, but that movie sucks donkey dick. And then she did The Woman in the Window. I was like, what the fuck is Amy Adams doing, man? But maybe there's just not that many good roles out there. And if you want to keep working, you got to take what you can.
Overall, she's good. She pulls off the part. Like, she invests it with the weird energy that it demands of her. She does a nice job with it. Both the moms are actually, like you said, high points of the movie because they're Academy Award type actors.
Yeah, Julianne Moore can do no wrong, in my opinion. I will stand for no Julianne Moore slander. Thank you very much.
No, I will not be slandering her.
Not that you would be the one
No.
to do it. But yeah, you want to start walking through the story and we can talk about these terrible choices that Evan makes and why we kind of hate him?
Yeah, why the heck not? We're here. Might as well podcast.
Let's do it.
Imagine, if you will, Evan Hansen, played by Ben Platt, is a high school senior. He's got a broken arm, he's socially awkward, and he struggles with mental health issues. As the fall semester begins, Evan and his hardworking single mom, Heidi, played by Julianne Moore, are eager for him to succeed. So Evan takes his therapist's advice and types up encouraging letters addressed to himself. But his school year is off to a bad start. His only friend, Jared, played by Nick Dodani, keeps his distance, and a troubled kid named Connor Murphy, played by Colton Ryan, screams in Evan's face. Connor's sister Zoe, played by Kaitlyn Dever, tries to apologize for her brother, but Evan, who's had a crush on Zoe for years, can't bring himself to even talk to her. Later, Evan's in the library printing a self-pitying letter to himself where he laments his life and lack of connection with Zoe. Then Connor comes up and passive-aggressively signs his name in huge letters on Evan's cast. And then when he spots Evan's weird letter, Connor freaks the fuck out and runs off with it. Several days later, Connor's parents ask to speak with Evan. They have bad news. Connor has taken his own life. And in further bad news, the parents misunderstood Evan's letter to be Connor's suicide note, so they believe the boys were good friends. They invite Evan over for dinner. Evan wants to tell them the truth, but Connor's mom wants to believe her son had a friend so very badly, And Evan wants to believe that he had a friend too, so he ends up playing along and perpetuating the lie by writing up a set of fake emails and showing them to Connor's family.
Connor do be freaking out, though. He's got a hairpin temper.
He's a good weirdo. I liked, what's the actor's name? Colton Ryan.
Colton Ryan, yeah.
In a small role, you just kind of have to see him. You go, oh, that's that troubled kid that you don't want to fuck with. And what I learned in learning about this movie is actually on Broadway, he was understudy for all the three big male parts, for Evan, for Connor, and for Jared, the friend.
Oh, wow.
So
I knew he was Connor's understudy, but I didn't realize he had understudied for the other parts.
I think I read that he was like, that seems like a big job, especially for a young actor to be on Broadway and any moment have to step in and basically do the whole show yourself, do any part of the show, all the songs, all the dances. It's pretty cool.
Quick sidetrack. What does an understudy do every night? Do they just watch the play and try to learn the mannerisms in case they need to step up? Or
that's a great question.
Do you know?
No, yeah. Like sometimes I feel like understudies get small roles in the chorus, more or less in the background, and that way they have something to do come into the show every night. But I don't know. It's interesting to think.
You get paid a little more if you're understudying than if you were just like a guy in the chorus. I wonder.
I would hope so.
We don't know a lot of. We're not musical theater guys.
No,
but we're willing to learn. If you guys want to chime in on Twitter or the old email,
let us know what we don't know.
So one of the big problems people had with the play was that it just said Evan has mental health problems. Just left it at that, kind of vaguely. I haven't seen the play. I can't speak to it. But this movie doesn't do that. It actually says he has anxiety, depression, and lists the pills he takes, because it literally opens with a shot of all his pill bottles scattered around his room in the bathroom, setting up this kid's got some mental health troubles.
I feel like on my first watch, I didn't even cue into quite how many pill bottles there were. On a second watch, I'm like, oh yeah, they show it to you early. But there's a big mental health situation with Evan that is his big secret. And he doesn't reveal it until he tells his mom at the end of the show, which is fun. That's actually one of the things I thought was an interesting part of the story, how they're showing you his cast the whole time. They're talking about how he broke his arm, but there's a big lie behind that too, which is fun. I think a lot of people had the problem with the movie that, oh, the mental health stuff is treated too blithely or not in a sensitive, sophisticated way. I was okay with it. I don't know. It's content about teens, for teens, and doesn't have to be the smartest, most subtle thing ever. So I felt like the writing was fine, but it didn't connect. So it didn't really succeed at its job.
There are some people making that criticism that are maybe out of touch with kind of like how mental health is discussed today, because it's much less taboo. It's much less of a burden when, you know, someone in your family or your friend group is on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications. It's just part of life now. So I think the movie was okay to treat it without such gravity. I think more than anything, that might serve to help kids see that it doesn't have to be doom and gloom just because you got a little chemical imbalance in the old brain.
And they beefed up that character of Alana to make that point pretty explicitly in the middle when she does a whole thing where she reveals her issues.
Yeah, she seems popular and well-liked and more outgoing. I thought the movie was going to be funny when she said at the pep rally, she's like, but you know what's not awesome? Deforestation. And I was like, all right, that's pretty funny. But then they didn't really carry on that thread that she was cluelessly funny. They kind of dulled her character out.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to her character a little more in the second act, but her character's a little bit of a mystery because it does seem like it was a more clueless, over-energetic caricature, I guess, in the play is what I understand, and it's more sensitive and nuanced here, but it gets lost in the middle because it has pieces of both versions.
I have problems with the big climax of her story, which I know you do. You got qualms as well.
Yeah, we'll have to try to talk through that. Didn't quite make sense to us.
We got qualms. But we already talked about Platt playing a senior. I don't want to make the whole episode about that. That was the big story around the movie when it came out. But was there anything specific to like this section of the movie regarding his appearance you wanted to touch on?
I mean, the other thing is, besides his appearance, what I noticed is the first song that they let him sing is this powerful, I don't know what you call it.
It's a power ballad.
Maybe it's a power ballad, yeah.
It's a banger too.
And his look is one way. It's very pathetic on purpose. And then he busts out with this powerful masculine voice like a romantic hero. He's big and strong. And that further cracked that illusion that this is supposed to be a timid little kid. And there's definitely songs later on where he sings with more of that, what you expect, that teen affectation that you might hear and recognize as when he's supposed to be this timid kid. But that's not what he sounds like when he first opens his mouth and sings on screen. So it's more like, what are we watching? This guy looks like he's 35. He's singing like he's the hero of Les Mis, and yet he's supposed to be this wimpy kid, and I can't make sense of it all.
Yeah, it sucks that he's such a good singer. It undercuts his performance because I remember that song from when the play was like at the height of its popularity. I think it charted. I think it was like on the radio.
Okay.
Occasionally. Waving Out a Window is the one we're talking about.
Right.
I think that was like the famous song from the movie. But yeah, when he's speaking, he does like almost a whisper shout. We haven't talked about whisper shouting in a while, but he's doing like a Kyle Chandler type of thing. Like hushed tone, but like very urgent and speaking really fast. And he waves his arms around wildly.
He's a neurotic little dude. And yeah, there's there's a big contrast. But I mean, it's kind of supposed to be that. So one of the things that we'll deal with here is like, okay, what is this character supposed to be? How wimpy is he supposed to be? How uncharming is he supposed to be? Because you have to believe that he's really a high school kid with zero friends and real social anxiety. But yet he's also the star of a movie and you have to like him. And so he does this ugly duckling thing, which I call an ugly duckling thing, which is like the dumpy little freak. When he opens his mouth to sing, you see his real soul and it's beautiful and he's amazing. And that's why characters fall in love with him. That's why the world falls in love with them. But it doesn't always work. And it just kind of, the duck doesn't fly.
Duck doesn't fly. That's going in the lexicon. Like that dog will hunt.
That duck don't fly.
That duck don't fly. So let's talk about the singing. We've well established that I am the mayor of Footloose, except for singing. No fucking singing in my movies. But I can level with a musical and I can get on board. I don't understand, like the movie doesn't establish the reality of the singing.
Okay.
It's hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but the movie never makes it clear if the other characters are hearing Evan sing or just speak and he's like imagining himself singing it because that's how he feels more powerful and more open. Because they do the thing that I hate where like he sings lines at somebody and they respond conversationally. Like they do that a lot in this movie. Like with Cats, it's like everyone breaks out into song. You're like, okay, cool. Like even if you don't like the songs, you get it. They're singing to each other. Everyone's in on it. But in this, I'm just not sure.
Yeah, and I think the movie does it accidentally. So I got this very strong impression because that keeps happening for the first 30 minutes of the movie. Nobody else sings until around the 30-minute mark.
Connor's already dead and he's the one who gets the song.
Yeah, the song Sincerely Me is the first time anyone else opens their mouth and sings on screen. And I was like, whoa, I thought this whole like concept here was going to be that Evan is the only guy who sings. So we're sort of seeing the songs inside his mind. But no, it's like, oh no, it's actually kind of a standard musical where everyone sings sometimes. And sometimes what they're singing is what they're saying out loud to each other. And sometimes what they're singing is what they're thinking to themselves. And you have to sort it out. But it got confusing. I know what you mean.
Because there's a big emotional number in the second act, I think, You Will Be Found, which he performs at Connor's memorial. I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but I think it's important to note because like it goes viral. But if you read the comments that flash on screen, they're all like, what a speech.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a speech.
What he said really resonated with me. And I'm like, nothing this guy says would ever resonate with anyone unless he fucking sang it. Because he talks like this and he fucking falls down standing at a podium.
Yeah, that's the thing is the premise doesn't work when you can't believe that this person you're seeing on screen has any charisma. Like there's something missing. I think he played it. He might have played it too losery.
Yeah, he went too far. Like there have been losers in movies that we love. It's not even necessarily like a hard thing to do, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of normal.
There's plenty of them.
Especially with teen heroes.
Lovable losers. Like
teens coming of age, they always start out weak and they need to find themselves and then they express themselves. And, you know, and it's supposed to knock you on your ass. That's what musicals are supposed to do. I think to your point that just the fact of musicals are awkward. People are talking and all of a sudden, why are you singing?
Right.
But I think that's natural. And I think even for people who like musicals, the idea is that when you have winning actors who are charismatic and can sing and dance their ass off, they start doing it and you can't help but be won over. Like I had that exact experience watching West Side Story recently. It was like,
I was gonna call out West Side Story as one where it worked too.
It's like, oh, I don't know if I'm in for a musical. And then they start singing. You go, oh, fuck, they're good. They got me. And this movie, the singing is good, but Ben didn't get me. And the other actors did. So I have to, again, point the finger at Ben.
Sorry, Ben. We loved you in Pitch Perfect. But speaking of that sporting cast, let's go through. So Deaver, little fun fact about Kaitlyn Deaver. Did you know that she was on a show previously?
No, I hadn't watched her in another show.
Yeah, she was on Last Man Standing with Tim Allen for many seasons.
Oh, okay.
And also she was Loretta McCready on Justified. And that is our Justified crossover of the week.
Justified crossover of the week.
Oh, shit. I honestly did not know that.
Our first one since we came back. We haven't had a Justified crossover lately.
It's been a while. I was like, did they dry up? Is there no more crossovers of the week?
Oh, no. She was a big part of Justified. She had a special relationship with Raylan. Her father is not in the picture after a while, so he takes her under her wing, but like a crime boss is also trying to take her under her wing. So there's a battle for Loretta's soul. Season 2 of Justified is fucking fantastic. You never watched it, right?
I think I watched most of season 1 and I liked it. I just somehow dropped the thread.
Just pick it up in season 2.
Okay.
Just start with season 2, episode 1. You'll never be able to put it down.
Okay. But yeah, I lied when I said I'd never seen Kaitlyn Deaver in a show before. I did see her in that show Unbelievable, which was a limited series.
Yes.
And she was so good. But that is a fucked up character, like a really deeply sad survivor of sexual abuse that she plays in that show.
Yeah.
So it was a harsh introduction to this actor who was really good in that. And I totally bought into her in that.
It's kind of a flip side to Platt's performance here because like you saw saw how she can play somebody who's got some problems and is down on their luck, but is still engaging to watch, and you root for her.
Right.
It is possible, obviously. But then we talked about it, Julianne Moore, Amy Adams. Do they all need new agents? Or I guess this was such a big hit as a play. I guess maybe they just put their faith in it.
Yeah, I think everyone going into this had every reason to believe that this was going to be a cool thing to do. They get to sing in a Broadway musical on screen for these actors that mostly do contemporary non-singing stuff. Like they all have that bug, those actors who can sing. They all want to get their chance to do it.
We get it, Hugh Jackman. You know how to fucking sing.
Exactly. It's fun as hell. Yeah, I hope none of them took this out on their agents. I don't think it was their fault.
It is weird that they all can sing really well.
I know.
Like there's not one song in this movie where I was like, Les Mis had the Russell Crowe situation where like he obviously couldn't sing, but he leaned into it and had fun with it. But here, everyone's like, oh, like you could have been a singer.
They're good. And especially the women, all three of them. And they say that as they tend to do nowadays, record the vocals live on the sets because audiences demand that authenticity. They don't like the look and feel of lip sync studio tracks. So like they all have songs that are tearful and emotional and alternate with actual crying. And they're like really soft moments. And those things, as much as they don't demand the big booming voice, they're really hard to sing when you're singing super softly and almost crying and still sound musical. And they all sound great.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the dinner with Connor's family where this whole situation becomes untenable. Because I don't know if you know this about Evan Hansen. He's a filthy fucking liar.
He is such a liar. There is so much lying in this movie. I made the note to myself, talking about this movie is like journalists talking about the Trump era. Like I had to literally Google synonyms for lying as I was writing notes about this movie because I was like running out of words for deceit and deception and chicanery and
his menagerie of untruths.
You need it because it's just so many deceptions and uncorrected misunderstandings that are almost white lies. And
wait, what's that? What's that one tweet that's like, that guy stole my thesaurus? And it's like, you peddle falsehoods. It's a good tweet.
Yeah, so it's well done. The problem that I had with it is that these are very familiar type of misunderstandings, uncorrected misunderstandings. They happen in every kind of sitcom and especially like teen afternoon sitcoms. So they did all those little gimmicks and they wrote them pretty well. They're believable and they work to draw you in. Like he doesn't tell any stupid lies. Like he's always trying to get out of it and he gets backed into it. But then unlike those other shows where we've seen all these same situations happen, they get played either funny or like sweetly sad. But all these moments are played so dark. And Evan Hansen is such a pathetic little guy that like it makes you turn on the movie. You're like, oh, this is a sick little fuck. What is he doing? Yeah. And he keeps glaring out at you like Gollum under his eyebrows and quivering his jowls. And it's like, this is twisted.
You're describing him like Cujo from the movie Cujo.
There's so many reaction shots where other people are talking to him and he's looking back at them and he does this thing where his head shakes and his jowls shake as he like quivers in this neurotic mess. And you're like, man, this kid is such a fucking mess. And the scene, like you said, gets worse and worse. He decides to double down on the lies, which he does multiple times. Does he bring the fake printouts to this dinner? I forgot.
No, I think
they asked for it.
Yeah, they asked for it at the school. And I think he had started planning it with Jared before this.
Because Amy Adams, she's straight out feeding him lies. She's like, yeah, we didn't find any emails between you guys, but like, we know you all have secret email addresses. So we know there's a stash of emails between you guys. And he's like, yeah, you're right, lady. And then he has to go and produce that stash of emails.
He's like a psychic, like one of those TV psychics. He's like, I'm sensing an ice cream place was a fond memory for you. And she's like, a la mode. He's like, yes, of course. A la mode.
He does that, exactly. So they're plausible, but they're over the top. And there's nothing to take the edge off them. You end up going, holy shit, this is fucked.
When you look at it through that lens, like the movie is really trying to make this like what he did was bad, but what choice did he have? Look at sad Amy Adams.
Yeah.
But he had a choice. When I heard the premise of this movie, I was like, and they fucking sing songs about it? This kid is lying about another student's suicide and sheesh, that's a heavy shit to start with. You're starting there and it's going to get weirder from there.
Maybe if they had leaned into the weirdness and you felt like they knew they were making a really dark, twisted comedy, dark comedy, you could have gone with it.
Kind of like a Sweeney Todd type of thing.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, this is fucked up, but they know it. But I got the feeling this is fucked up and they didn't quite understand how fucked up it was.
So you did have a note here for Nick Dodani as Jared. And I thought it was a good performance.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why he does this and keeps it quiet for so long. That's a loose end. Like they should have just had Evan do the fake emails because I feel like looping Jared into it is unbelievable because he clearly kind of hates Evan.
He does. Jared he's the comic relief. It ties into what we were just talking about. There's obviously really serious material in a teen suicide. There's this serious version of sitcom situations in Evan's growing web of lies that he's weaving. And then they go, okay, let's do some scenes with Jared, because Jared's funny, he's sarcastic, he's sharp-tongued, and he's always zinging Evan and sort of like take the edge off everything. But it's barely there because Jared is also kind of sick. When he insults Evan, he's not quite doing it lightly. Like,
no, he's mean.
Yeah, he's this out gay teen. And so they crafted him in this sassy gay character role, like tropey kind of role. But he plays it genuinely mean, or at least right on the edge of that. So it doesn't necessarily take the edge off like it might otherwise do.
It doesn't feel like lighthearted ribbing. And that was why I was like, why would he keep this devastatingly enormous secret for this kid that he kind of hates?
But maybe because he's also a sick fuck. Like maybe that's the point of that character. He's like, fuck these people. I'm buying into the big lie.
Also, why does making fake emails between two people need coding?
I know, they said coding.
Was that just a buzzword? They were like, all the kids are doing it now. The kids are coding.
What do you have to do? I guess you have to change the dates on the emails you type.
You need Photoshop.
That's true. They could have done it.
How many tweets have we done where we fucking faked DM conversations with a brand or a celebrity? Or it's not hard.
Yeah. When they said the word coding, I took that to mean all of the above, including photoshopping.
Photoshop is not coding.
It's not at all, but I don't know.
Damn it.
The olds don't know that.
Yeah. All right. You ready for the middle of the movie? Geez, you gave me a long synopsis.
Yeah, there's a lot of plot coming. There always is, but we're going to sing our way through it. Let's hear what happened next.
I'm not singing shit. Oh, I already did sing this episode. Sang me and Mrs. Jones.
You did it voluntarily.
Done a British accent. I sang. You're getting the full court press this week.
Song and dance man, Jon Drake.
That's right. He's a song and dance man, see? Yeah. Although he feels uneasy about it, Evan continues to perpetuate the big lie of his friendship with Connor. He's becoming more and more attached to spending time with Connor's loving family, and especially with Zoe. Then a successful, popular girl at school named Alana, played by Amandla Stenberg, approaches Evan to help with launching a mental health support nonprofit called the Connor Project. He's reluctant, but Alana bonds with Evan and wins him over by revealing her own mental health issues. When Evan tries to speak at Connor's school memorial, his terrible anxiety makes him stumble over his prepared remarks and literally fall down on stage. But he gets up and delivers an impassioned and inspiring speech from his heart, and it's more successful than he could have ever imagined. Zoe and the Murphys are incredibly moved, and video of the speech goes viral on the internet, receiving huge acclaim and rallying countless people to the cause. Flush with the attention, the Connor Project launches a Kickstarter to raise money to reopen the apple orchard where Evan and Connor's famous fictional friendship moment supposedly took place. In an unbelievable dream come true for Evan, Zoe makes the first move, and she and Evan begin a whirlwind romantic relationship. The cracks begin to show in Evan's palace of lies. It's great writing. I love that. First, Alana is hurt that Evan has stopped showing up for Connor Project meetings, and then an awkward attempt at introducing Heidi Hansen to the Murphys leads to a blowout fight between Evan and his mom. Then Alana suspects Evan lied about his relationship with Connor, and she confronts him about it. But Evan doubles down, sending her a pic of the supposed suicide note as proof. Evan asks her not to show anyone, but in a moment of fear over their stalled fundraiser, Alana shares the Dear Evan Hansen letter online to try to spark sympathy. But it has the opposite effect. The letter goes viral, and suddenly everyone turns on the Murphy family in a flurry of online criticism and ridicule.
It's got it all, highs and lows in that middle section of the movie.
$100,000 to reopen an orchard? Like, who's going to work there? Who's going to run it? Who's going to mow the grass? Like,
I don't even understand.
What's the plan there?
It's not an orchard for producing fruit and selling it. It's an orchard for visiting and picnicking at. Is that a familiar thing to you? I guess I'm not familiar with the concept. No. I've done apple picking. I guess it's like that.
Yeah, I'd rather fucking, I'm not going to say that, but apple picking is one of the worst activities you can be asked to go on.
Connor loved it. It was his favorite thing ever.
Probably when he was like 5.
Yeah, that's true.
But his mom is just looking for any happy memory to hold on to.
That's true.
But yeah, her whole thing with the Connor Project doesn't really make sense to me. Also, her like doubts about Evan come out of nowhere and don't really make sense either.
Like, why does Alana suddenly go, did you lie about everything?
Yeah, because he missed a couple meetings and that was it. She says like, oh, well, I did see him sign your cast in the library. Like, you guys definitely knew each other earlier on when he's still not leaning all the way into this we were actually best friends, maybe lovers situation.
It does feel like her character has to do a lot of things for plot reasons rather than for personal reasons. She doesn't seem like too much of a real human being. And then, do you want to get to the logic of the big breakdown at the end of the act, or should we start at the beginning?
I guess let's start at the beginning.
I had good things to say at the beginning of this act.
Oh, cool.
I like the song Requiem.
Not me.
I question myself. It might have been just that was the first song where Ben Platt was not on screen and didn't do any of the singing. It was the first one that Kaitlyn Dever got to sing. The mom and dad sing too. And I liked how it's one of those typical musical theater things where 3 different people are singing the same song and almost the same lyrics in the chorus, and yet it means something different to each one of them. And so I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a skillful execution of a musical theater thing.
Yeah, lyrically, I thought it was fine and conceptually, but the song itself fell flat for me.
That's fair. It's not thrilling musically. The mom mom and dad are not doing anything interesting with their vocal performances. They're singing like practical lines. I get where it's not the most fun song.
Also, I dislike that trope that you were describing.
Oh, okay. That's actually a turn off for you.
Yeah, I think it can work well, but I just find musicals corny.
I know what you mean.
I recognize that it's my own personal bias, and that's not any fault of musicals. I'm sure they're very hard to write and perform in, and I all the credit in the world to the people who get up on stage and sing them. I just think it's lame.
This is definitely not the show that's going to change your mind on musicals.
No.
Moving on to highs and lows in the second act, there's a high for Evan, which was another creepy low for us watching him.
Yeah, Chris Hansen might have something to say about this whirlwind romance.
Yeah, dear Chris Hansen, you need to stop by Evan's house.
Plot twist, that's his dad that left. It was Chris Hansen the whole time. Not making fun of him for his dad leaving, making fun of him for being a 40-year-old weirdo crushing on a high schooler.
It happens in two songs, I'm realizing. So first, they plant the seed of them connecting when he sings this one song where he explains to Zoe, she's like, my brother sucked. Why is everyone so upset about him being gone? And he's like, no, he loved you. And here's all the things he loved about you, which were the things that Evan loved about her.
Which are weirdly intimate.
Yeah.
Connor admired your secret little smile. Like, it's like you know a secret, but you're letting us in on it. Right. Connor said that? Yeah.
And it's like she's moved by even hearing Evan say this. So they almost lean in at the end of that, but they don't.
Yeah, they're interrupted, I think. Like, it looked like they were about to, but then someone comes in.
The parents come over. But that doesn't slow Zoe down because 2 scenes later, she knocks on Evan's fucking door and is like, can I come in? And I was like, whoa. And then she's like, is your room upstairs? And I'm starting to freak out. I'm like, holy shit, they're doing this. Zoe likes Evan for no reason I can understand. And she is making the first move.
Much like Lorena McCready was an enterprising go-getter, so is Zoe Murphy. She seems like she knows what she wants, and it's this oily little goblin, and she's going to get it.
I love that. Oily little goblin is perfect. This is where I started dissociating. I'm like, forget about asking if there's any chemistry between these people. Like, they're not even in the same movie. It felt like literally 2 different movies stapled together when they had a love scene where they connect and come together.
I'm not sure if Ben Platt can act on screen. And I don't mean that in a mean way. Everything I've seen him in, most of his characters' appeal is their singing voice. Like Pitch Perfect, that show, The Politician on Netflix that he's been starring in.
Oh, okay.
He sings in every role I've seen him in. But Kaitlyn Dever, we know, is a strong actor. So when it's just the 2 of them, it's even more noticeable, kind of the gap.
And now I think she's an even stronger actor than I believed her to be before because she kept it up. You believe that she is into this guy and you just can't see why. And that, like, the script doesn't even give you a real rationale, except that he spoke so beautifully about her brother. But then she's like, actually, I hate talking about my brother. Let's stop talking about my brother. I don't care about anything you say about my brother. I'm just into you. And I'm like, why? That's literally the only thing we've seen that could make you impressed with this kid was what he said about your brother.
Right. She'd actually tried to speak with him in the first act, like we said in the synopsis, but he was so awkward.
Right.
They just kind of left it hanging.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that's the guy for you, huh? That's what gets you going.
And then just to put a point on it, they do this lovey-dovey montage of them riding Ferris wheels and roller coasters together and laughing. And it ends with 3 of the worst movie kisses I've ever seen in quick succession, quick little edit. And like the third one, they're not even trying to kiss. It doesn't ramp up to the most passionate kiss. It ramps up from a half-hearted kiss to just like a thing where they like bump their chins together. I'm like, yep, that about sums up their chemistry.
They cut through those kisses so fast.
So fast.
I didn't even know that they did it on the first watch. I had to go back to the rewatch. I was like, oh, they do kiss. I thought it was more implied, but no, it's in there.
No, they're trying to dodge it just like we were.
Yeah. It's not a lot of sexual chemistry between these 2 characters.
No, sadly not. And that's the thing you miss. If there was the right actor in that role, it would have been thrilling on all parts. Like, it would have been really moving. It would have been really romantic. It has all this potential. Sadly, it just keeps falling apart.
All right. So let's get to the you will be found moment where he's kind of bullied into speaking at the memorial for Connor.
It starts out, I just wanted to say, one of my pet peeve, hated cliches is the microphone feedback howl. Anytime anyone goes to a microphone in a movie, if they're the least bit self-conscious, that fucking microphone is going to shriek in their face. And they do an extended, really generous howl in this one. And they did the trope so blindly, like such a cliche without even thinking about it, that they forgot that like 2 shots ago, they showed his buddy Jared sitting at the soundboard because that's Jared's job, is like the AV kid. He's the one operating the mic. So it takes on extra meaning when the mic goes into this extended scream of feedback. That's on Jared. Either he did that to fuck with his friend or he's just totally incompetent at managing the faders there. I thought it was like a funny twist.
And I'm not an AV guy, but I played in bands, played live shows with amps and stuff. Mics don't just feedback for no reason, like because you walk up to them. Like, you got to have something that's causing the feedback.
John, if you studied audio engineering a little bit more, you would know that microphones are quite a bit like dogs and cats. They can sense your fear. If you approach them with any kind of anxiety or trepidation, they'll freak out.
That's like the equivalent equivalent of a dog barking at you.
Yeah, the mic knows.
It's more, the mic's more scared of you than you are.
Yeah, you have to just be confident. And he didn't have that, so he got zinged.
I didn't even think to call that out as a cliche that I hate, but now that you've brought it up, I'll never be able to unthink it. Every time I hear it now, I'm going to be like, motherfucker.
I hate it so much.
Hacky.
It's such a rote thing that's like, of course you do that. It's not fun. It's no longer, there's nothing in it. It's such a worn out cliche.
Hacky bullshit.
Speaking of hacky bullshit, can I harp one more thing about the memorial speech and the You Will Be Found song?
Let's fucking go, man. Let's dig into it.
This is one of the pillars of the thematic meaning of the movie. Evan Hansen is a lost kid. He has no friends. He doesn't have a lot of hope for being recognized for who he is in the world. And he gets up and he sings an inspirational song. And the main message of that song is You Will Be Found, which to me is like the most passive construction and limp sentiment for trying to inspire somebody. Is like, are you feeling bad? You will be found. Okay, what does that mean? You know, that is pretty dull. Couldn't they have worked a little bit longer on that phrase?
It's like something you'd expect Tommy Lee Jones to say in The Fugitive. You know, get on stage in front of the TV cameras like, Richard Kimball, you will be found.
Yeah, there it's chilling. Here it's just like really dull. I was like, oh, they shouldn't have built the whole show around that concept, but oh well.
I didn't even mind the song. I thought it was pretty powerfully sung.
Yeah.
But that's just because Ben Platt has a powerful voice. I think he can make most stuff sound good. But yeah, it is a nothing sentiment.
Yeah.
Also, The Fugitive, interesting movie because it has dual protagonists who are on opposite ends for most of the movie. But you kind of root for both of them. That's a rare, I guess. Interesting.
Well, I was rooting for Zoe in this.
Now I'm going to be distracted because I want to get this over with so I can go watch The Fugitive.
I know. Sorry,
it's
let's move on. Speaking of dramatic moments, Evan and his mom have a very important blow-up argument where they...
Do they?
I mean, they were supposed to.
He's like, come on, just come back inside. And then she like says other lines. He's like, just come back inside. He can't really, his heart's not in it.
It didn't work. It was each of them is doing their own thing, but a fight does a very recognizable dynamic where it escalates, right? One of them says something and the other one says, this is actually what's bothering me. And then the other one's, I can't believe that. But they don't match. Their emotional level like never matches. So you're supposed to like hook on to what your scene partner says and vault from that to the next layer of emotion. And they're like slipping and missing the stairs they're aiming for. So the scene just totally doesn't work. What it's trying to achieve, which is to create a rift that later gets closed up as Evan falls back on his mom as the one true person he can count on to see him and support him. But it's sadly doesn't work because, you know, we love Julianne more and another scene falls flat.
But even she in the scene, she's not like furious. She's annoyed, which is also maybe not the right way to play it either. Or she doesn't even come off as hurt. She doesn't look like she's about to start crying. She's more, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
I can buy stuff. It's like indignant as opposed to hurt.
She's definitely indignant.
Pissed off.
And her character had to leave in a huff from a nice meeting with her kid's friend's parents. So it's like, you have to be really indignant to get so mad over their suggestion.
But also, Evan was going to take that money. Like, he was going to take that money.
And why not?
Because it's built on a lie.
That's true.
He never knew Connor.
But if he's doing it to make the mom happy, I don't know. You're
Look,
right.
No one is more against the cost of college in America than I am as a gentleman with 2 young children that I've already have to start saving for college for. If any rich people want to come in and pay for my kids' college, feel free.
Yeah.
But to deceive this family and then take $100,000 from them, that's fucked up.
That's true. I didn't reckon with how much money they might be offering.
I assume they're not they're very well off. The movie keeps bringing that up. Like, they're not going to put them in a community college or something. They were probably going to send them to a state school at least.
At least. Yeah. But his mom thinks that they were friends. She doesn't know that there's all this subterfuge going on. She's mad at it just because she's insulted that anyone would think that she doesn't have enough money to send her kid to college. But meanwhile, she knows that kid is going to have to be...
But she doesn't have enough money to send her kid to college.
That she doesn't. They're trying to get all these essay contests, and she knows that her kid is going to be probably working his way through college, and she's someone who suffers from being overworked because she can't make enough money to scrape by. And I don't know why she wouldn't want some help. People are like that with money, I guess.
Yeah, I don't agree with her stance on it, but I know that there are plenty of people out there that would react that way.
It does ring true.
From her perspective, though, yeah, they were really friends, so it is a legitimate offer. But I'm more, like, once again, appalled at Evan's behavior for just going along with it.
That's the whole movie.
Now they're literally paying you because you were his friend. So you're fucking their daughter. They're going to pay for your college, and they're giving you all this delicious food, which, fuck off, Larry. No one's favorite food is black beans.
Yeah.
Do you remember that line?
Fucking Larry. Yeah. I didn't catch that. I remember when there's a whole thing about them arguing over what Evan's favorite food is, which is obviously like a painful thing for his mom. That's other people are close to her boy in ways that she may not be. But the black beans is not very plausible.
Maybe like I'd believe rice and beans.
Yeah.
Just beans? This motherfucker just eating beans?
He's a beans boy.
Like, he's a beanie boy. So he's probably farting. Zoe's still like, no, this is the guy for me.
That's my dude.
That's him.
Quivering and farting in the corner.
Just a single rain cloud over his head, making his hair and skin look wet all the time.
Lord.
At the top of the episode, we're not going to be mean-spirited about his
I think everyone appreciates how even-handed we've been throughout. Let's move on to a different topic.
Did you call him a greasy little freak at one point?
You called him something better. An oily goblin.
An oily little goblin.
Yeah, I think that might win. Before we move on to Act 3 and bring home the Goblin saga, we had another sort of mechanical point in Alana's story, right? Evan shows her the suicide note, which is not really a suicide note as we know, but she thinks it is. And she's freaking out because the Kickstarter is about to end and doesn't have enough money. And she feels the pressure because we know that she's a person who has her own struggles. And she's like, I got to post it. It's the only thing that's going to restart the wave of sympathy for our cause. And it works. She posts it and they show the Kickstarter numbers starting to ramp up again. And then moments later, it brings down a shitstorm of condemnation and suddenly everybody hates the Murphy family. I'm like, how is it both? What was she supposed to be thinking and what was everyone else supposed to be thinking? I couldn't square the logic.
So I see both sides of it, but they don't connect. And by that, I mean, I can see how posting the note would increase sympathy and get more donations. I can conversely see how posting the note would make people angry at the Murphys, even though that's a stretch to justify like the vitriol that's aimed at them following this note's being released. But like both things can't happen.
Yeah. And
you can't, you're just doing it both. Like everyone hates them, but also everyone's going to, I guess maybe they're donating the money to Connor is how they justify it, not his family, but like Connor's dead.
Yeah. Like everything in that note, except for the Zoe part, which was maybe people are like, what's that about? But that's not really the topic of the condemnation in this plot turn. It's more like, oh, Connor was upset at his family and didn't feel loved. We thought that he was the kind of depressed person who commits suicide because he feels really supported. Like, what were they thinking before? It's not like new information. We knew this kid was really hating it. And so the letter didn't, in my mind, reveal anything that they couldn't have already surmised that, yeah, the kid felt unloved. Whether that was because of mistakes this family made or not, those were all open to surmise at any point in this story.
I think part of it was, why are you addressing your suicide note to this peer of yours, this friend of yours, and not your family? But suicide's a fucky thing.
Yeah.
You can't, he's not there to explain himself. Of course, he didn't write it. But if he had, he can't give you the context. It felt like they just needed the Murphys to be pariahs and martyrs to give Evan his kind of redemption arc, because he does it to save them from the scorn, but it never really sells why there's any scorn in the first place.
Yeah, I guess you've made it make sense for me. The real problem is that the letter says Dear Evan Hansen and not Dear Mom and Dad, and that's what people are supposed to be freaking out about. But it's a little bit overblown.
It's a weird thing to get that pissed about. This kid you don't know committed suicide and you're mad about how he went about it. It felt half-baked. But yeah, I think it's entirely just to give Evan his big redemption moment.
Yeah. Should we talk about that and bring this sucker home?
Let's do it.
All right. The rush of public negativity has reopened old wounds in the Murphy family over the things they did or failed to do to help Connor. Then Evan shows up amid their fighting and admits to his big deception. He tries to explain the reasons why he lied, but words fail. Then Zoe asks Evan to leave her and her family alone. But the Murphys still protect Evan by not revealing his deceit to the world. With no one left to turn to, Evan goes back home to his mom, and he admits to her his darkest secret. The fall last summer that broke his arm, it was no accident, but an attempt at self-harm. Heidi apologizes to Evan for coming up short as a mom, and she promises she'll always be there for him. Then Evan turns over a new leaf. He uploads a video admitting to his lies and apologizing to everyone. Then he sets about to truly learn what Connor Murphy was all about. Through diligent research, Evan unearths a video of Connor singing a song he had written, and he shares it with the Murphys, who never got to see Connor's talent while he was alive. In the end, Evan writes himself a new letter, promising to move ahead in life, a stronger and better person. Sounds pretty thin.
I mean, starting over a better person is a low bar for this dude, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, man, maybe just don't take advantage of anyone's suicide to get good food and pussy, I guess. It's not that hard.
Pretty easy to do better than last time.
This kid's terrible.
It's pretty soft landing. He sings the song Words Fail, where he steps into their living room and says, it was all a lie. We were never friends. I broke my arm alone. I was never with Connor. And it's such a tense moment. I think you and I reacted differently to the fact that this incredibly uncomfortable moment of admitting his lies, he busts into song. It's a musical. Of course he's going to. For me, I actually felt some relief. I'm like, oh, at least he can sing his way out of it because it's not reality.
I was like, if he is singing to these characters, Cynthia Murphy must be like, get this fucking singing ass weirdo out of my house. ass forever.
That's pretty much what happens. He keeps singing and saying things, and they're realistic things you might say, like, there's no excuse, I can't explain it, which is the point of the song, words fail. But by the end, the dad and Zoe have both left the room, and it's just Cynthia there, and she's like, this is really weird, you should probably go. And I think we all felt that way at that point.
Yeah, I felt like he should just leave the movie. The movie should just be over. And I also didn't like the song.
Yeah.
One of the weaker songs in the movie, I thought.
There's not much to it. It ends up being really short. Maybe it was abbreviated the way they staged it here.
Yeah, he only sings like a handful of lines, I think. It's like, why bother? You're going to cue up the band. You're going to do that thing I hate where you're like talk singing for the first few lines of the song because you have to transition into the song. Thing I fucking hate.
And then,
you're going to do that for this short ass little song.
One chorus where he belts out the big high notes, and that was it. And then he was done.
Womp womp. Thumbs down. You guys couldn't see that. I literally did a thumbs down. I know podcasting is not a visual medium.
Came through in your voice. But can we turn to a song that I liked? One of two songs that I noted as I particularly liked. First one was Requiem, which you thumbs down. The second one was So Big, So Small, which Julianne Moore, Evan's mom, finally gets to sing. She doesn't sing through the whole show until the end here, and I thought she was fantastic. I cried. It's a cute little mom story, and I kind of loved it.
Have we heard her sing before, Julianne Moore?
I don't know.
I can't think of any performances, but yeah, she's good. And the song was good. It was very emotional. As a parent, like it resonated. It's one of the high points of the whole movie for me.
I liked it. And I thought there was a great aspect to her performance of it. She doesn't belt it. She is being a mom. Like her kid is 17. He's verging on becoming a man, but she does that classic unapologetic mom thing. She's singing to him about being a kid, and she puts that little tone in her voice that takes her back to talking to him when he was 5 or 7 or however old he was when his dad left. And it really worked. I thought Julianne Moore just nailed it. And I didn't know what to expect because, like you said, we hadn't seen her sing. She does another one of those hard ones that's got crying in the middle of it. It's got a lot of really soft, held out notes, and she sounds great.
And as far as I know, it was the cast doing their own singing. I don't think there was any like stand-ins.
There was no stand-ins. They said it was almost all live on set. I felt like in my rewatch, I was listening really closely, and this is not a critique at all, but it maybe felt like the last 2 lines of her song, which are the really softest and hardest to sing, might have been overdubs, but it was all convincing.
Yeah.
It was all good.
Whatever. Yeah, not going to nitpick that. It's
no
hard enough to act, and you got to act and sing at the same time.
Yeah, not a qualm at all.
No qualms here. With this movie, we have qualms, not with that song.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of songs in the third act. It's just one song after another to tell the story, because then we go into the Connor song.
Did that ring true to you, Connor? Because they do it as a reveal. The song starts and plays for 2 choruses before you find out, oh, that's Connor singing. You're like, who's singing? There's this little singer-songwriter light pop song going on. That couldn't be Connor because that's not his style, but it turns out.
He's dark and brooding and angry. And
fingernails are painted black, not quite goth, but he's pretty dark and brooding.
He's not goth. I would say he strikes me as a metalhead.
Could totally be.
The way he dresses. I think I saw a wallet chain at one point. I can't swear to it, but that's some metal stuff to me.
Yeah, so I guess neither one of us expected him when he sang his most heartfelt personal songs to his friend group in rehab, which was caught on video, that it would be that song. That was another one of those was like, oh, this is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because it's also giving the message of the movie is like people with mental health problems can trudge through and get a little better every day. That's kind of the message, but it's a weak little simpy version of that.
Yeah, I don't have much to say about it, to be honest. I was kind of checked out at this point.
Yeah, we can push our way through the ending. The ending of the movie is checked out. It ends with that.
Yeah, the ending of the movie is so half-assed.
There was one funny thing I wanted to point out, because one thing that I liked about the movie, because it's a pet peeve in other movies that have a large screen time aspect. There's a lot of typing in screens on this movie. There's a lot of social media displayed on screen. Things are going viral. There's a Kickstarter. There's emails are part of the plot. And this movie chose to, I don't know why other movies can't do it. They showed actual Instagram screens. They showed actual Gmail, like they used the real UIs instead of like fake. Usually they just make up some bullshit site and it looks fake.
You might need to like get permission to do that.
There must be something like that, because why wouldn't everyone just do it? Because it's easier than designing your own Instagram clone.
Because I know Apple has weird rules around their products being used in films, like a villain can never have an iPhone. So I wonder if like in other movies, Instagram or Facebook just doesn't give permission to use like the actual, and I don't know if there's ways around that or if that's even true, but I have to assume it's for some kind of weird legal reason. Because yeah, it is jarring when it's like, check out this post on Blowy. And it's like, yeah, I love Blowy. I use it every day.
Yeah. So this movie, I was praising it in my mind. I'm like, oh, it feels real. It's trying to be this movie about youth and social media connected teens. And it feels real because they use real stuff. These people are technically savvy. And then just to pop my little bubble, at the end of the movie, a bunch of the main characters receive anonymous envelopes in their mailboxes with no return address. They're just plain manila envelopes that have thumb drives inside
from
them.
Ted Kaczynski.
They've got flash drives in them, and they pull the flash drives out and stick them right into their computers like if they weren't hack victims waiting to be hacked. I don't know it is. I got to chuckle at that.
They also got an email from a Nigerian prince. Tough situation. His money's tied up and he needs just like $150. I hope they gave it to him.
Well, our heroes in this movie were right to be trusting because those unmarked envelopes were actually from their old buddy Evan Hansen, and they was sending them videos of Connor. I don't know why he just didn't send links because they watched them on the computer.
So the weird kid in your school who's now got to be a pariah of some sort, right?
Yeah, total outcast. They show everyone staring at him funny.
He's leaving unmarked envelopes all around town. I'd be like, hold on now.
Don't even
get the bomb squad. Get fucking Jeremy Renner in the suit. I just watched The Hurt Locker last night. Get Jeremy Renner in the suit. Have him open these mailboxes because I don't trust this for 1 second.
But they were trusting. Everything is soft pedaled in the end of this movie. So apparently this end scene, Zoe insists on Evan meeting her at the orchard, which has now been renovated and open because they did raise the money, even though everyone hates them. She goes there and he's like, why did you bring me here? And she's like, I don't know. The movie said I had to bring you here to make our breakup seem less harsh. And so she goes, oh, if only I had met you today, but I didn't. So fuck off, you asshole. And she goes off to college and he feels good about himself after that.
The meeting was completely inconsequential. First, I was like aghast when she pulled up. I was like, no way they're going to get back together. Like,
right.
This kid doesn't deserve it. But then she's just like, yeah, we're still not dating. And he's like, got it. Okay.
And she's like, but I wanted you to see the orchard. And he's like, yeah, actually, you've never been here, which didn't even make sense to me because the ending section of the movie is where he devotes his life to understanding Connor. But he's like, oh, also, I didn't bother going to the orchard, which was his most favorite thing in the world during that sequence. I waited till you invited me for no good reason. Anyway, it's a pretty weak ending. It doesn't help the movie, which already was weird, but it just gets kind of soft and glowy at the end for reasons that didn't seem necessary.
Everyone involved in the making of this play and this movie has to know just how fucked up this whole situation is, but they never seem to want to grapple with it.
Let it be fucked. That's kind of why I liked him.
Let it be fucked.
I liked him being a fucked weirdo in that scene where he admits to the family. I'm like, yeah, finally we're dealing with shit. And then they turn it around and wrap it in a soft Hallmark card ending.
Fuck this movie. That's Dear Evan Hansen. Probably the movie I've hated the most that we've covered in a while.
Really?
Yeah. Let me see. Let me look through my handy dandy.
Because if it wasn't clear, I actually liked a lot of things about this movie. Like, I guess I'm still a sucker for song and dance. There's not a lot of dancing, but
you're a sucker, all right. There's no dancing in this movie.
A little dancing. Connor dances in his one number, which I kind of dug that.
I guess The Lone Ranger was worse. And Mortal Engines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those to me were stinky bad. This one had big problems, but like I always do, I softened up. I even softened up on Ben Platt in the second watch. I'm like, you know what? It's got to go with it. There's a couple shots in the movie where his de-aging lighting and makeup actually worked. And I could feel my empathy for him growing. If there's 10 seconds where he's on screen and he actually looks like a kid, I go, oh, I feel for this kid. And then he starts looking like a goblin again. I'm like, screw this guy.
All right. You want to hear what Stephen Chbosky's been up to?
Yeah, break out the Chbosky.
So he is the titular wallflower in The Perks of Being a Wallflower. He wrote that book, mostly semi-autobiographical. I don't think I read the book, but I remember watching the movie and I didn't hate it. It was pretty well done. It was a early Ezra Miller movie.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
2012, maybe? Weirdly, he was also an executive producer of the Poughkeepsie tapes, which I was DMing you about this. Like,
yeah,
what the fuck? You look through all his stuff, it's all this like kind of treacly coming of age shit. And then the Poughkeepsie tapes, which for our listeners that are not aware, the Poughkeepsie tapes are a super fucked up horror movie about a serial killer in Poughkeepsie, New York, who's at large. Come to find out, he was an executive producer because his brother-in-law is the writer and director of the movie. So I was like, all right, that makes sense because it definitely sticks out among the rest of his filmography. It's effective. I can't really recommend watching it. It's horrifying.
Then I definitely won't.
Yeah, you would hate it. His first big screenwriting gig was writing the film adaptation of the musical Rent, also a huge bomb.
Okay.
So he's doesn't have a ton of luck in the musical department, but he did co-write the live action Beauty and the Beast, the Emma Watson one, and that was a hit, but it's Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
He also wrote and directed the maudlin-ass Wonder in 2017, starring our boy, baseball kid, Jacob Tremblay.
Oh, okay.
From Dr. Sleep.
I didn't even realize that connection. I had to watch the trailer for Wonder to remind myself what it was, and it did look treacly.
I think he's in like prosthetics in the movie.
Yeah.
So I watched the end of it. An elderly family member had it on.
Okay.
And it seems like that kind of movie. But I will always love Stephen Chbosky for being one of the creators of Jericho, the Skeet Ulrich TV show from the late aughts, I want to say. That's when it started. Early 10s, maybe.
Was that a show that capitalized on popularity of Lost with like weird vibes?
No, not really weird vibes. It's
Okay.
more 8 major cities in America are hit by nukes.
Oh,
Jericho, Kansas is where the show takes place. And like this town's trying to figure out what's going on and reconnect with the outside world. And but like there always are in post-apocalyptic situations, there's raiders and there's food shortages. And how do we get the power back on? And Kansas gets pretty cold in the winter. How are we going to keep everyone alive?
okay. That sounds fun.
It's not perfect. It got a little maudlin, which I guess is a Chbosky hallmark.
I wonder how that happened.
He does have a movie coming up. It's going to be the Vince Vaughn comedy Nona's, which is in post-production. Vince Vaughn opens a restaurant and hires a bunch of grandmas to work there.
Oh, okay.
I like Vince Vaughn. That could be fun.
Would you let him hire your grandma?
My grandma would beat the shit out of Vince Vaughn with a slipper if she could reach his head.
But I guess that's where the comedy is likely to come from.
Yeah. Also, my grandma's dead.
Okay.
All of them. Fresh out of grandparents.
Okay.
My boss is hearing this. No, I'm not. Stephen Levinson also wrote the play, of course, but he does have some screen experience. He wrote for Masters of Sex, which we brought up last week because Betty Gilpin starred on it. And he was the showrunner for FX miniseries Fosse and Verdon. He also wrote Tick, Tick, Boom. So, musicals. And he's currently writing a film adaptation of Fiddler on the Roof. So, musicals.
Oh, yeah. Tick, Tick, Boom was Andrew Garfield. There's another guy who could play young well into his later years.
I do wonder when he will adapt the all-black version of Fiddler on the Roof called Fiddler Please.
Wait, is that a real thing?
That is a joke from Community.
Oh, okay.
Donald Glover's character brings it up. And then we get like a very brief glimpse at one of the songs. And I would die for a full adaptation. Maybe I'll put a link to Fiddler Please in the show notes. We haven't done a link in a while. All right, so let's talk about Ben Platt. So he responded to some accusations of nepotism. As we mentioned, his father, Mark Platt, had produced the film. His reaction may not endear you to him. Here's what he said, and I quote, "I think the reaction is largely from people who don't understand the concept of the piece. The fact that I created the role and workshopped it for 3 years. Were I not to do the movie, it probably wouldn't get made. Of course, that's not true entirely. All I have to do is let the work speak for itself." Well, maybe you should have, because that's kind of a shitty quote.
He did not speak for himself that well in that quote, but I'm actually on his side. Like the idea that it's nepotism to hire the guy who created the role and has defined it. It's not like he picked his son who had just been doing community theater and put him to star in a big Hollywood production. There was a much bigger reason.
I think if 23-year-old Ben Platt was going to star in the movie and Mark Platt was producing, there'd be a lot less backlash.
Yeah.
Because that's the big criticism of this movie is Platt doesn't look like a high schooler. But maybe they got steamrolled into casting him anyway. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying that's what I think the crux of the argument was for people who said that nepotism was involved.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. That's a plausible argument. But for some reason, I just also see that because when you hear Chbosky talk about it, he's like, there was no one else to choose. This was the guy who created the role. He had to have him. And you and I would say, no, you didn't. That was a bad idea. But it's like a whole different other thing. To go into the Dear Evan Hansen business thinking that you're going to cast somebody fresh and new in it, it's an entirely different project. And to that extent, Platt's kind of right. Like it doesn't necessarily get made.
No, I see that side of it. I wish they'd made this movie 5 years earlier.
Yeah.
Not 5 years, because that was when the play started.
Oh, but they could have done it within a year or two, rushed it into Hollywood.
If only. But Platt did return to Broadway in 2018, 2022, and 2023, playing Leo Frank in Parade. I didn't realize he's been a Broadway performer since he was 8.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been in stuff like Camelot, The Sound of Music, even The Book of Mormon, which is a little surprising. Like I didn't know he had that kind of vulgarity in him to be in The Book of Mormon. Very funny show. One of the only plays I've ever seen on Broadway was The Book of Mormon.
Oh, okay.
After like its prime, but still, it's a lot of fun. He's done acting in film as well. He was in The People We Hate at the Wedding in 2022 and Theater Camp in 2023. He's currently filming something called Merrily We Roll Along, and he's been starring on Ryan Murphy's Netflix show The Politician since 2019, which is supposed to wrap up with its 3rd season. They did say they were taking a break between the 2nd and 3rd seasons, but the 2nd season, I think, aired in 2020. So it's been quite a bit of a layoff. I wonder if that's still happening. He's also released 2 solo albums, so he's a bona fide singer.
Yeah, he's a good singer. I hope I didn't give any other impression.
I think we praised his singing pretty effusively.
Yeah, he can belt out a song.
Let's talk about Kaitlyn Dever, a.k.a. Loretta McCready.
Yeah.
She's a star, right?
She's great.
She's a star. Before this, she was in Booksmart, which I really liked. After this, she popped up in Ticket to Paradise. She played the titular role in Rosaline and starred in the basically one-hander, No One Will Save You.
Oh, yeah. Did I bring that one for show and tell?
I think you did. She's basically the only person on screen for that entire movie, and she's fucking awesome in it.
She's super cool. Yeah, she's at least the only speaking role. We see a couple faces.
Yeah.
Yeah, she carried it. She's good.
She's even executive produced those last 2, so it seems like she's getting a little bit of cachet in the industry now, too.
Nice.
Which good for her. She finally wrapped Last Man Standing in 2021.
Oh, okay.
She was only a recurring role for the last 3 seasons because paycheck's a paycheck, right? But that show fucking sucks.
I guess I knew what Last Man Standing was at some point, but I just had to Google it to refresh my memory, and it's that show.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking Tim Allen.
Tim Allen leaning hard into his right-wing dickbag personality. So now being done with that show freed her up to make some good TV like Monsterland, Dope Sick, and she's going to star as Abby in season 2 of The Last of Us. If you've played The Last of Us Part 2, Abby is like the co-lead. That's a big part. And I think she'll have great chemistry with Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie on the show. I'm really excited for that. And anything else? Oh yeah, she even played Westley in the home movies, The Princess Bride Project.
Oh.
She was one of our Westleys.
I forgot that. That's so neat.
It is neat. All right, so should we get into next week's movie?
Is there a next week's movie?
2 weeks from now, movie.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to take a week off, but don't worry, it's not going to turn into 3 months off.
Not this time.
Just a week. But then there'll be another week off in March. Sorry, we travel. But I did say I wanted to go back to at least the 90s because we've been doing a lot of really recent movies lately.
That's right.
And DEAR EVAN HANSEN is no exception. So when it's like, let's catch up on what these actors have been doing, that's kind of anticlimactic because, well, they wrapped filming on this 4 months ago. So we're going to be doing a movie that I was very fond of as a kid, and I'm excited to see how it holds up. It's Virtuosity from 1995. Do you want to hear who stars in this movie?
Absolutely do.
It's Denzel Washington and a young Russell Crowe.
Wow.
In one of his big first American leading roles. He plays essentially a virus come to life.
Like a computer virus?
Yeah, he's like an amalgamation of all like the worst serial killers ever. And somehow he gets uploaded into the body.
Okay. I'm sure that will be portrayed perfectly realistically as computer viruses were always depicted on screen in the 90s.
That's funny. The guy who directed this also directed The Lawnmower Man.
Oh.
He was like, I got one more chance. I'm going to do it right. Because The Lawnmower Man is a fucking pile of dog shit. You remember that movie?
No, I remember the short story from one of those Stephen King collections.
One of the worst Stephen King adaptations. That's saying a lot. Because that's a movie you need decent CGI to make work.
Okay.
And they did not have it. But Virtuosity, I remember having pretty solid effects. And it's Denzel and Russell Crowe going head to head. Like,
I know.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah, 90s Denzel and Russell Crowe. I'm stoked to see this because I have never seen it before.
So that's coming up next. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe if you can. Follow us on Twitter at BlastZonePod or shoot us an email, blastzonepod@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time in the Blast Zone.
See you next time in the Blast Zone.
Blast.